11 million views in just 2 weeks. I don't know why I am so excited to be doing this, but essentially today we are going to be doing a movie breakdown, a movie analysis, a movie review. This movie is worth commenting on, and I just had to make a commentary video about the movie Monica by Uche Montana. As a firstborn daughter, when I first watched that movie, I could see certain aspects of her character in my own life. And I think that was one of the most profound parts of the movie. This is actually a true story. It was sad to know that, but also it was an eye opener that this cuts across so many homes in Africa, especially in Africa, if you were born and bred in Africa as a first-born daughter. We are basically going to be doing an analysis and a breakdown of the main character, which is Monica, played by Uche Montana, also produced by Uche Montana. We are also going to be doing a breakdown of the different supporting characters in the movie and also a few lessons learned from the movie as well. Let's get straight into it. In the first scene, you can tell that Monica is obviously a very good child, very kind hearted, wanting to support her parents. She, at a very young age, takes on responsibility. Now, the movie goes on to show us that she takes on this role until she's grown into her adult years, still taking care of her family, still pursuing her responsibilities at the expense of her dreams, her aspirations. She's had to pause her life and be like a sacrificial lamb to her family. It kind of establishes the role of the firstborn child in every single home, which is the role of responsibility, mainly because in especially in this part of our world, you as the firstborn child or you as the firstborn daughter is expected to carry a lot of responsibility. You are not allowed or you are not expected to slack off. You are not expected to. The idea is that you are a role model to your younger siblings, especially if you have younger siblings. You are meant to be the one that they look up to. So you are not allowed or you are not expected to be disobedient, relax. Basically, you're expected to be as the blueprints for your younger siblings. Her younger siblings are on their way to school. Obviously, she's the one taking them to school. And what is interesting about this scene is that it seems like she appears to be an afterthought, especially where her mom is concerned. When I was watching this, I felt as though this is not her biological child, but obviously, from what we can tell from the movie, that's her biological mother. It's so funny that, something as basic as food for your own child, you almost see it as an afterthought. You tell her to go figure something out for herself. So she's taking her siblings to school, and we can tell that right from the beginning of the movie, she was taking on the responsibility of like the third parent in the home, selling with her mom, taking her younger siblings to school, going to pick them up. And she wasn't also schooling at the time. She would go and, learn how to sew. From there, go pick up her siblings after she had taken them to school, go pick them up after school, come back home, help her mom with what has to be done in the household, essentially carrying every responsibility that you wouldn't expect a child as at her age to carry. Another thing that struck me was her dad wasn't also very active in pushing for her well-being. For example, the scene where she was asking about breakfast, her dad did not seem to worry about the fact that his daughter wasn't fed or hadn't eaten. But it seemed like life was going on as normal. It's routine. That's how it is. It's not really something that is surprising. I want to talk about Monica's mother's character. It's so interesting to watch her right from the beginning, putting or expecting her daughter to carry all these responsibilities. Take, for example, the scene where Monica's dad wanted to make her continue her education. He wanted to fund her education so that she's able to complete her senior high school education. It seemed as though she did not want her first daughter, for that matter, to continue her education. She was prioritizing her younger kids' well being or education compared to her older child or her firstborn child. And it was so interesting to, watch this movie. I'm not sure what I felt at that moment, but all I could think about was, is this truly her daughter? Because essentially, your firstborn is, your first seed or your first representation on this earth, and you would want to do everything in your power to give them the best. Granted, I mean, it's also important to take care of all your children equally, but it seemed as though this was not an equal affection given to all three children. It seemed as though her mom's character preferred the well being of her younger kids compared to her first daughter. I also want to talk about the fact that Monica's character was also, a child that had certain principles that was, for me, remarkable, because considering her background, considering where she was coming from, it's easy to be swayed, which even relates so much to today's society or modern society, where children from less privileged backgrounds can easily be swayed by money, by flashy things, by, certain small, even small things that people use to sway children. And we see this character named Uzo, who was trying to essentially come at a girl child for that matter, with money, trying to sway her to get her to, do his dirty deeds or whatever intention he had at that particular moment. And I think it's important to talk about this, because in this day and age, this goes on in so many ways and in so many forms. Growing up as a girl child, I had these experiences where there were people of the opposite sex who tried to, sway me with things. And sometimes it's important that you as a girl child, or you as a, female, are able to stand your grounds, which is exactly what Monica did in this scene. And it made me so happy that despite the background that she was coming from, despite her, socialization, despite the fact that they didn't have much, she wasn't swayed, or she wasn't moved by money, or she wasn't moved by anything that could possibly destroy her future. It looks like her mom was nonchalant about the whole situation. She did not care, and it felt like she played that off, or she just regarded that as unimportant by saying that, Uzo, which is the character who was trying to sway Monica with money, was just playing, and she was making a mountain out of a molehill, essentially belittling her worry, essentially belittling the fact that your daughter has come to you in confidence to try to tell you, this is what I'm going through, this is what is happening to me, and you don't show any concern. You don't, it almost seems as though you do not care. When children try to speak to us, whether as parents, as bigger siblings or older siblings, we sometimes play off, or we sometimes brush off their concerns, we brush off the things they say to us, saying that, they are not really important. And I've had a personal experience from my childhood where I went through something very traumatic, and I had the same reaction, not the exact same thing, but it was along those lines. And it kind of, makes you doubt your confidence or doubt your reaction within that situation, that isn't this something so serious, why is this being downplayed? And essentially, you grow up if you grow up with that mentality or thinking about the fact that something as important or something as sensitive as this was brushed off, then it kind of blurs out your boundaries as a grown person or as a grown woman. Side note, I just want to comment how good an actress this younger version of Uche Montana is in this movie. I mean, the girl was able to portray the character so well. She made it so believable. And I think, it was important to highlight that in this commentary as well. So fast forward, we are introduced to Pascal's character, which is Monica's supposed friend. It's interesting to point this scene out because it kind of gives us an idea of, the mentality or the mental processing that goes on in her head at this particular point in time. The conflict between taking care of her family and pursuing her own interests or ambitions in her life. John is this character who falls in love with Monica, wants to marry Monica, and Monica is torn between loyalty to her family and pursuing her own dreams. And it is displayed by her reluctance to want to be with John. Monica speaks to her mom. Naturally, anything as big as a relationship, a proposal, or anything of that sort, she's the first go-to person. She's the first confidant. She's the first person to go to for something like this. And that's exactly what Monica did. But let's see how her mom reacts to this whole situation.
He said he wants to marry you. Mama, he even said that he's going to buy me sewing machine. Do you trust this man? Hmm? He said that he loves you. Said he loves you. And you believe him? He does not have any reason to lie. Ah, Monica. Men know they get reason to lie. Lie in their natural language. Just be to remove. Raise the child alone. No family.
So we are also introduced to a new character, which I feel is sort of like Monica's second mother in this movie. Someone Monica has been with since childhood. She has seen Monica grow and mature into this wonderful woman. It's evident in her admiration for Monica when she says that anybody would be proud to have her as a daughter for a child. Actually, she tells Monica to go after her dreams and pursue what she really wants to do. And I think this is also important that, despite the fact that we have our parents, sometimes it's important to have some of these role models, some of these mentors, some of these people who want the best for us, who are rooting for us, even if they are not related to us directly. Sometimes there are people who treat us better or root for us or are biggest cheerleaders, even if they are not related to us. We travel 15 years later and we see Monica's character with her friend walking down a path where they happen to run into the character Uzo, a man in Monica's childhood who was trying to sway her with money, trying to get her to sleep with him. As funny as the scene was, I got a picture of society's view or perception of a woman in her late 30s who is unmarried, who has no family of her own, and is still living with her parents or is still living in her parents' home. This is how society has always viewed women. I don't think that men of the same age go through the same thing. Yes, they do face backlash, but the level or the intensity is totally different. When you continue to watch the movie, you realize that John's character, which is Pascal, also was unmarried, but he wasn't ostracized by society. He wasn't mocked at. He did not face the same level of judgment that Monica's character or Monica had to face in or by society. And it's important to note this because in today's world, it has always been like that. Once you hit your 30s, once you clock or you leave your 20s as a female, as a woman, whether you're a firstborn daughter or not, once you hit that 30 mark or that 30-year mark, there's a lot of questions that starts to come across your way. When are you getting married? When are you having babies? When are you starting a family of your own? And in as much as it's important to have all those things figured out, I think it's okay to start I think it's time to start having the conversation of it's not everybody who wants to go through that route. It's not everybody who wants to take that cause of get married, have children, start a family, and whatnot. There are a lot of women who have kept this to themselves. They don't have people to talk to about the facts that they are unsure of starting families of their own. They are unsure of the idea of marriage. They are unsure of a lot of things, and following just one path is not the point of living life. Everybody has choices of their own. But essentially, I just wanted to point out the fact that this portrays perfectly the kind of picture that society perceives women who are in their 30s, who are still unmarried and still have no family of their own. In this scene, Monica is seen to be coming from her day's work, and she comes home to see Pascal, which is her ex-lover, who happened to travel to America, and by the look of things looks well, did well for himself, and there's all these drinks. And Monica is happy because in her mind, her ex lover is back to rescue her from her current situation. She's finally going to be able to say that society was not right. She still has somebody who came for her at the end of the day. So she's happy, and you could kind of sort of feel the relief from judgment through her character, through her reaction upon seeing Pascal. We get to know later on in the movie as the scenes go along that she was about to experience the worst betrayal of her life. We get to know that indeed Pascal was not there to marry Monica as she thought, and that he was actually there to marry her little sister. So it's important to pause and talk about this scene, because you are sort of giving this eye opener into the fact that this little sister who is expected to be your cheerleader, who is expected to be somebody who looks out for you, essentially does not. And in this case, that's the opposite of looking out for you, when she talks about the fact that Monica hadn't accelerated anything in her life. She was still stuck in the same place where he left her years ago, and essentially bad mouthing her elder sister to this man who was there to, marry her. So Pascal has a change of heart, because initially he came there to marry Monica, and upon hearing what Monica's sister said to him, he has a change of heart. And what's also interesting is the fact that, he diverts his attention to Monica's sister, because obviously now she looks good. She has completed her education. She has, sort of accelerated her life, and his attention is diverted towards her. We also get to know along the way that he has been the one showering Monica's sister with gifts. All this while Monica had no idea, but her mom had a front seat view to everything that was panning out. First of all, we have to give Uche Montana her accolades for the portrayal of every single emotion about her character in this movie. I mean, the acting was top notch. Obviously, the production, storyline, everything was top notch. But her way of eliciting that emotion to the point where you, as a viewer, are able to feel exactly what she's feeling, the betrayal, the resentment, the sorrow, the responsibility, all those different types of emotions was portrayed by her perfectly. Her mom's character, there's an element of manipulation in this when she tries to manipulate Monica into not marrying Pascal, because I also think that she knew that Monica was going to be finally free of her once she got married to Pascal, because essentially Monica was taking the burden of the entire family. What she projected was that once her daughter got married to Pascal's character or to John's character, she wasn't going to have that support anymore from her eldest daughter. She wasn't going to have, the constant salary that her daughter was bringing into the household. Her priorities were going to eventually change from her, which is her mother, to her own kids once she started having them. I think her mom was not ready to accept that. Her mom was not ready to accept the fact that her daughter was grown, which is why she changed tactics and was trying to use manipulation by guilt tripping her into not marrying Pascal, by making her promise not to marry him and not to marry at all before she was 25. 15 years later, we are given a view of Monica and her little sister side by side. Even from appearance, you can tell that they were two different people now. Although Monica was the eldest daughter, although Monica was the firstborn daughter, she appeared to look different from her little sister. And by side, just a physical side by side analysis, you could tell that, obviously, if anyone were to choose between these two women, anyone in their right senses would go for the little one, because she was, she had furthered her education. She looked like she was developing herself. She had developed herself both physically, educationally, in different ways. Monica's sister lands a job, and, essentially the entire family is jubilating when Monica's sister made a comment about the fact that she didn't want to get old by still living with them, or by still living in her family home. Beyond having to deal with society when it comes to this, you also have to deal with your own family. You also have to deal with mockery from your own family members. And this is a typical example where indirectly, in conversation or in passing, there are certain remarks that are made to sort of mock you, to sort of, whether knowingly or unknowingly, but you just feel that mockery. And I've seen a lot of people go through this in their own homes, in their own families. And I think it's important to also note this just for the sake of this analysis as well. Monica's sister gets a new phone, and Monica happens to notice this and tells her mom about it, and talks about the fact that this was such an expensive phone, and they have problems at home they needed money to solve. And this, or here was her little sister who was having an obviously very expensive phone, and just highlighting or pointing it out to their mother. But the reaction from her mother was so interesting, and that's what I want to talk about, because there was a statement that she made, and it is so important to talk about this or to bring it out. The statement she made was that no one asked you to carry the burden of the family on your shoulders. Essentially saying that no one forced you to do all the sacrificing that you did for your family. So if this person, in this case, which is her sister, is doing things for her own self, you are not, expected, or you are not allowed to talk about it or complain about it. Everybody and their choices, everybody and what they choose to do with, their sources of income. And it was so interesting because I think, first of all, I don't think, or I don't have a problem with Monica's sister doing things for herself, because I also believe that as a young woman, once you start landing, or once you land your first job, once you, maybe I'm going to do a different video about that, but once you start making or earning something small for yourself, maybe after graduation, once you start earning your first paycheck, I think a lot of the time I've noticed that most children are quickly to try to solve everyone else's problems before they solve theirs. Most people are, so focused on, paying fees, supporting parents. And it's important to do all those things, but not at your detriment, not at your disadvantage, not at the cost of you not having your basic needs met. And I think it was perfectly portrayed by Monica's sister, or Monica's sister's character in this movie. In every aspect of life, people go for people that they feel they are equal to, or say on the same level in terms of a lot of things. So if, say, you are aiming to, say, marry somebody of a higher level or somebody of a higher socioeconomic standard, you ought to push yourself, no matter your background, to a level where you would be a good fit for such a person. She has the worst betrayal anybody can ever have, which is the betrayal from your own blood, which is her sister in this movie. And essentially, Pascal was there to marry her sister and not her. I think it's also important to talk about the points where Monica decides that she has had enough of harboring resentment, harboring anger towards her family, towards Pascal, towards her sister's betrayal, and she decides to forgive them for the betrayal. One of the lessons that is important to highlight is the fact that forgiveness is not necessarily for the people you choose to forgive. As an individual, as a person that, harm or wrong has been done to, sometimes forgiveness is more for yourself than for the other party or the other parties. And in this case, she said something very profound. She said that I need to forgive you for my own peace, not just for you, essentially saying that I love myself enough not to hold on to anger towards you two, not to hold anger towards, anybody who has done me wrong. But essentially, I need to forgive you to be able to live with myself, to be able to find peace with myself. And Monica eventually reaches her breaking point. A lot of the time, that is when the fog just clears from our face and we are able to see things clearly for what they are. And for Monica, unfortunately, it took so many years for her to reach this point where she finally realized that there was no one who was rooting for her, there was no one who was there to support her, and she had to leave her home where everything had been taken away from her, that even her own bed that she was lying on was taken away from her. So essentially, she had nothing else to give to these people, and that led to her realizing that this was her breaking point and there was no one to support her. Fast forward to the final scene where we see that Monica's character has essentially lost everything. She now lives in Auntie Divine's shop, which was the only thing that she had to her name. That was the only thing that she had as a 36-year-old woman from an African home. So in this final scene, Auntie Divine miraculously comes back or travels back to Nigeria and visits Monica, and she invites Monica to come work with her. And this scene broke me, you guys. This scene broke me with the acting, with how perfectly Uche was able to sort of hone and bring out that emotion, was just how she was able to, move through those different waves of emotion, from disbelief to shock to gratitude to, you know, just how her story unfolds in that final scene is one that got me sharing a tear or two. I won't even lie, but I think that was the consolation that we all needed from watching that movie, because I think we all felt for Monica's character. And I want to say that, in as much as, her character ended well, in as much as, everything worked for her character, I think it's also important to note that not a lot of people have that ending. Not a lot of people have the benefit of saying that things ended well for me at the end of the day, which is what we should be preaching, because sometimes we have the mindset that once I put good out into the world, once I am good to others, once I give my all to others, the world or the universe is going to bring it back to me. Essentially, do good and good will come to you. But I've realized that in my very little years on this earth, I've realized that sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you can do all the good, which is why we say that bad things happen to good people as well. You can do all the good, but if you don't have boundaries, if you don't prioritize yourself, if you don't love yourself enough to vouch for yourself, to put yourself first, sometimes you're going to end up in a place or at a place that, you would only have yourself to blame and not the universe. So that's the end of this analysis. I also want to talk about a few lessons, just a few of them. I think from everything that I have discussed or I have pointed out in this video is enough lesson for anyone watching this video. But these are basically just three positive and negative traits about Monica's character that I want to summarize and point out more that stuck to me in this movie. First, positive, I'm going to first talk about the positive aspects of Monica's character, which was her behavior, her attitude, and the fact that she was a hardworking young woman who knew exactly what she wanted, even with the things that were working against her. What I'm trying to say is that despite the fact that Monica didn't have an education, she still was very focused, which was translated in the fact that she was very good at tailoring, to the point of being gifted her benefactor's shop, and she went on to still kept it running even after Auntie Divine had traveled abroad, which was what eventually led her to having the opportunity to even travel with her benefactor in the first place. So I think it's important that as young women, even as young people in general, whether you're a man, you're a woman watching this video, I think it's important to have some of these attitudes or behaviors: hard work, being respectful, being resourceful, being industrious, being, regardless of where you find yourself, you really don't have an excuse to say that life dealt you with the wrong hands. Even with the little opportunity that you have, make the most out of it, so that when the opportunity comes, when there's a room for a benefactor, a mentor to upgrade you or uplift you, it's easier to be able to do so. Another positive trait I took from this movie about Monica's character is the fact that despite everything, she was kind, she was respectful still towards her mom. She was able to forgive people who had betrayed her, i.e., her ex lover and her own sister. She was kind to the point of, even her own, disadvantage. And I don't think, that's too healthy to point out. But essentially, I'm saying that you can be kind and still love yourself. You can be kind and still, not put yourself at a disadvantage, which is what we should be taking from this movie. So, the negative aspect of, or the negative things I noticed about this movie was that not the movie itself, but the story, is that sometimes you have to say no, whether you're a firstborn, whether you're a secondborn, whether you're a thirdborn. One of the things I've noticed is that it's easy to say no to people who are external, but it's difficult to say no to family, people we are related to, which is what we witnessed in Monica's situation. And that led her to being manipulated countless times, being taken advantage of countless times by her own family members. So sometimes it's very important to say no to even the people who are closest, especially to the people who are closest to us, so that we are able to maintain that boundary that, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this, but not at my disadvantage. I'm going to help, but not when I need help, not when I haven't gotten help. And it relates to my next point, which is having boundaries as a person in general. I think personally, Monica did not have any boundaries, and a lot of us can also relate to this aspect of her character. We didn't have boundaries. We didn't know when to say no. We didn't know when to advocate. She didn't know when to advocate for herself. We don't know when to say no. We don't know when to advocate for ourselves. We don't know when to say that this has gone too far. You can't say this. You can't do this. I am willing to do this. I'm not willing to do that, and so on and so forth. The last thing I also noticed, which wasn't so positive, and it's also very true in real life, is the fact that when you take women and when you take men, the sort of backlash women get for being in their 30s, being unmarried, being without families or children of their own is not the same backlash as men have. And it's so interesting to, see this play out in a movie because essentially that's the truth. That is what is going on in society. I'm not even saying that men should get the same backlash. What I'm saying is, why should anyone get backlash in the first place? Why should anyone get backlash for the fact that they haven't met who they are going to spend or who they want to spend the rest of their lives with? And a lot of people get to this age not married, not having children because they maybe haven't met the ones, maybe aren't sure about the whole marriage or having children thing, or they are just not in the right headspace to take on that journey, or not even financially ready to take on that journey as well. And they now have to deal with all these backlashes from society and everyone else, even their family, to push them to get married. So the lesson I got from this was that even regardless of, yes, think about it, yes, work towards it, but don't allow anybody to pressure you into anything that you are not ready for. And that's all I have to say on this movie. Thank you so much for watching. This has been such a long commentary. This has been like a very hard video to do because there were times where I was filming and I realized my mic was not on. I had to delete certain parts of this video and refilm and rewatch the whole movie again. So I'm finally glad this is over. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that this analysis has been insightful. I hope that you took a lesson or two from this video. And if you haven't watched the movie Monica, go and watch the movie. I highly recommend. I'm going to also insert the link if I'm able to get access to it, and so that you can easily watch that movie. Don't forget to like, comment, share. Let me know what your thoughts are on this whole analysis. If you have any other lesson also that you happen to notice that I may have missed, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to connect on there as well. Thank you so much for watching. My name has always been Riwa, and I'll see you in the next video.